relatively quick because we already know how it's going to end. I think it's everything that leads up to that that's kind of similar. So I'll start from the bottom to the top. At the bottom, I do have the Denver Broncos. I do have them finishing with a 5-12 record. I do think they did just name Bo Nix a starter. I was tempted to give them maybe 6 wins because I like Bo Nix a lot. I think he's going to be very, very good. I think he's going to be arguably a top 3 quarterback in this class when we look back on it in 3 or so years. I think his game just translates really well to the NFL, and it shows a progressive, steady increase. And it's not dependent on it's a lot of it is his mind. Like he's an athlete with a good arm, but that's not how his game's predicated on. So I think that is going to translate very well for a longer term career. My only concern is he's on Denver. That's the only problem I have is that team's a mess, and I don't know if I believe in Sean Payton without Drew Brees. We'll see if he can make it work. We'll see. I don't know. It's an interesting matchup. I do like me some Bo Nix, but still gonna have the Broncos at 5-12. I think Bo Nix is going to show flashes. I'm focusing on him because the rest of the team, it's rough. If Bo Nix wasn't on this team and it was Zach Wilson or Jared Stidham, I got this at 1-15 or 1-16. There's a lot of holes. It's Patrick Surtain and Bo Nix at this point. Cortland Sutton's still nice. They just got to get him the ball. Marvin Mims, there's some potential there. Got to get him the ball, but they do have your boy Quinn Miners at guard. Well-deserved paycheck he got as well. So there's some work to do. If Bo Nix is as good as I think he will be, maybe they'll go up to 6 or 7 wins. I know they kind of lucked into 8 last year. That's kind of their ceiling, but I'm going to stick with 5-12. Bo Nix, the white Jalen Hurts, I'm saying it right now. I think they're going to be good. I think it'll be 5-12, but you'll see promises moving forward.
I think Jared was just watching the show and then dipped out as soon as he heard white Jalen Hurts. He's like, nope, I'm out. Don't need to hear this one.
I'll break it down real quick. They're both sons of coaches. They both took a little bit longer to get going coming in college as well. They both say pretty much all the right things. Like every time you hear them talk, it's like, damn, say something wrong for once. And I think they kind of are going to have that steady progression where it's like a little rough, and they're going to boom onto it, then kind of hit that status moving forward. So it's not an insult to Jalen Hurts at all. I'm complimenting where I think Bo Nix's trajectory is. I'm not saying that he's that right now. Rookie Jalen Hurts, rookie Bo Nix. I think that's not a unreasonable comparison. If anyone remembers rookie Jalen Hurts, there was some work to do, but he was still. But you liked what you had coming out. So think of it as a compliment for Bo Nix, not an insult to Jalen Hurts, Jared. So relax.
Yeah, let's not forget.
Not even here. We're already telling him to relax. That's how goofy he is. But I just think Bo Nix is going to be really good in the NFL, a better NFL quarterback than a college quarterback. And the Bo Nix experience at Auburn, I think, is slowly but surely going to start to mitigate into the pass a little bit.
I coined the term a few years back about that entire Bo Nix experience, and I'll be the first one to admit that that's mostly down to that offense sucking. That offensive game plan was just,
Gus hated him.
Get him in a team where he can use his brain and use his wheels. Because let's not forget, this guy was the number 1 dual threat quarterback in his class. And he was the number 1 dual threat quarterback when he reclassified to a year earlier class. So he is very talented. He does have wheels. He does have athleticism, and he has an arm to show. Now he added the brains and the understanding of how to read a defense. So I get it. I like the Bo Nix idea. By the way, and this is where I'm going to stop it at, is Bo Nix is now going to be the first rookie quarterback to start for the Broncos since John Elway.
I'm not going to call him John Elway, just like his YE stop there as well. But you know, that's good company. However you find your way in that conversation, that'll do, right? Like however you find your way in there.
Yeah, just got to be there. Just got to be in the club. That's all that they ask.
Absolutely not. So I'm definitely curious to see his progression long term, but this year it's still going to be rough for Denver. I'm going to have them at 5-12. Speaking of going to be a little bit rough, we do have the Las Vegas Raiders now led by Antonio Pierce full time, not just as intern. I still have them going 6-11 though. I think they have a lot to like. I really like that defensive line with Christian Wilkins, Max Crosby. If Tyree Wilson can stay healthy, they got something going on there. Defensively, with secondary, they overperformed last year. They were really good as well. Offensively, they're so interesting. Like they are just Devontae Adams is still Devontae Adams. Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer, like that's a top 3 tight end combination before we've seen Brock Bowers play, just presuming he's like 70% of what we think he'll be. And I think we think he's going to be awesome. I mean, Trey Tucker's all right. Jacoby Myers is a solid number 2. Offensive line, there's not bad, but it's not nearly as bad as it used to be, where the Raiders offensive line used to be a punchline. Now it's Jackson Powers Johnson, Colton Miller, like they got some players there. Zamir White's going to hurt somebody when they were trying to tackle him. The problem is who's taking the snaps and who's throwing the ball. Gardner Minshew, for better or for worse. We'll see. He's named the starter for week 1, so we'll see how long it lasts. There's some good, there's some bad, there's some ugly with him. We kind of already know the story. Like he can win you some games when all things go right. When things go wrong, it can get kind of ugly. We'll see. Aiden O'Connell, I don't know if it feels like this team's gearing up to sign Dak Prescott next year. They're just waiting in there next year when the Cowboys are like, you know what, Dak, we're not giving you $70 million a year, and then the Raiders are like, we'll do it, and then Dak goes in there and wins an MVP throwing to Devontae Adams, and all Cowboys fans are like, you got to be kidding me.
Don't say those words.
It's okay. The Cowboys will end up winning more games the other way, like Trey Lance season. Either way, it works out, or Cooper Rush season. But either way, that being said, I think the Raiders are building in the right direction, but it still feels like a 6-11. They overachieved at 8-9 last year and got on a roll with a new interim coach. They made the right move this time with an interim coach and keeping him after going on a run and not getting rid of him for Josh McDoofus and ruining Derek Carr's Raiders career and Hunter Renfro's Raiders career. But I'm going to give him 6-11 and building for the future.
All right. You know what? 2 things. You've got Harrison Bryant, who, by the way, is also a Raider. So
I'm not going to list the entire depth chart of tight ends. We'll be here all day.
I'm just saying, you're talking about 3 tight ends that all won the award for best tight end in college football their last year in college.
Can they run 3 tight end, 1 receiver sets instead now? Like, you know what? 3 tight ends and Devontae. That's it.
I mean, just maybe. Also, you mentioned the offensive line. I think also you adding Gardner into this. I think this is a situation where the Raiders embody their coach and are just going to beat up the other team. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but they are just going to out-physical the other team if they can. The problem is, I think in today's day and age, I don't think you're wrong with a 6-11 pick for them is because out-physicaling only can take you so far in today's NFL. And that's always going to be a concern. And with these kind of old school mentality type coaches, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Will this one work out? I hope so. But I don't know. Also, I guess I lied. There's a third thing. Gardner Minshew, better stats than Trevor Lawrence since Trevor Lawrence has been in the league. Weird NFL stat for you.
Gardner Minshew didn't have to play a year with Urban Meyer. But yes, I know what you're saying at the same time.
Yeah, no, it's just more of just one of those caveat weird pieces of it all.
Funny. It is funny to look at that too. Like when things are going good, Gardner can be very good. It's when they're going a little bit rough. It's like, oh great, here we go.
Yeah. This is the one that this is why I like the eye test and not just stats for everything. If anybody doesn't know my complaints on stats, just only stat only recommendations, because this is one of those things where you're just like, oh well, Blake Bortles is better than Trevor Lawrence. No. Gardner Minshew is better than Trevor Lawrence. No. Not necessarily as a better quarterback, but
it means we need to see a little more from Trevor moving forward, but we've seen the capability there. But I think what's interesting with the Raiders too is they were a little bit too good last year. If they could have sucked just a little bit more and got a Bo Nix or a Michael Penix, I think I'd have this team at 9-8, honestly. Like they have a lot to like. There's just some holes at some key spots that worry me a little bit. But either way, with the Raiders, that'll move us on. We already know how the order's gonna go. The next one we do have the Chargers, a much improved Chargers team, I think, this year. We're going to put them at 8-9, 3-3 in the division. Harbaugh, Greg Roman, they are going to run the piss out of the ball. Gus Bus might lead the NFL in touchdowns with less than 100 carries. Because as soon as they get within the 20, like, Gus, get in there. Like he did with the Ravens last year, just on cracked out at this point. I retract that. He will have over 300 carries. I got that the wrong way. J.K. Dobbins, if he can stay healthy, he's going to have his own 300 carries. And then you got Vidal as well, who's going to be their change. They're going to run the heck out of the ball. It's going to make Justin Herbert a little rough to take in fantasy, but that's fantasy football. We're talking about non-fantasy right now. Them like the Raiders in a similar vein, they're just going to hurt. Playing them is just going to hurt. I think defensively, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, the fact that they both took pay cuts to stay is very telling. I do think Derwin James, we're going to see a revitalization a little bit. Asante Samuel Jr. will see kind of that revitalization off of last year. I think Kenneth Murray is still there, if I'm not mistaken, as well. They do have a lot of pieces, and I really like Jesse Minter coming as the defensive coordinator. What he was doing at Michigan was absolutely outstanding. Just schematically, what he puts together. Once again, this is kind of like what I talked about with Mike McDonald. We're not going to go too deep into the weeds on it, but he is an outstanding defensive coordinator that within the next 365 times, within the next 700 or so days, he's going to be a head coach in the NFL. He is that good. The only thing that's really holding this Chargers team back right now is who they're in the division with. Justin Herbert being hurt right now. And unfortunately, they still have a few holes that they can't just patch up in one offseason. I think Ladd McConkey is going to be awesome. I know it's fun to make fun of him because he's the white receiver from Georgia, but he's more than actually just the white slot receiver. He's actually his athletic profile compares to Chris Olave, and it's weird to say that because they do not look the same when they play. It's like when you said Andrew Luck and Cam Newton had the same athletic profile, but watching them both run, it did not look that way. One of them looked like a white person running, and that was Andrew. I think you see the same thing with Ladd McConkey a little bit. I think he's going to be awesome. He's going to be productive. Quentin Johnson, if he can put two hands on the football and hold on to it, that gives him another deep threat. They're going to be fine. They're going to be better than they were last year. There's going to be a clear upward trajectory at the back end of the season. And at this point next year, they're going to be everybody's hot pick to upset the Chiefs and take the division. But right now, we're going to give them at 8-9. They're going to be very good, and them and the Raiders are just going to hurt to play. When you get done with that game, you're going to be like, ow.
Yeah, I feel like the Chargers are setting up for a pot shot team. And if you don't know what I mean, it's very simple. Run, 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 run. Oh, second and long. Throw it up 50 yards because they're crashing into the box. And they're going to score a touchdown. That's just how this offense feels. It feels like what they were trying to do with Lamar and that trio of running backs 2 years ago. Obviously, Greg Roman in correlation there. I do think
49er teams with Greg Roman.
Yeah, I do think this is one of those things where you look at this team and they're very good at what they're going to want to do this year. But you have a Ferrari at quarterback. You got to help them out is my thing. I have a differing opinion on the Chargers. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But we'll just say, I think this defense will be very good. And by the way, Kenneth Murray is no longer with the Chargers. He is with the Titans now.
Oh, well, either way, my point is that all the other guys I named that were much more important to that conversation.
Yeah, all the rest of the guys are actually playing and effective right now. Kenneth Murray at some point in time last year just was gone. He was already in Tennessee before ever being in Tennessee.
It was already over. But I'll also add on to that just to wrap up my thoughts on them as well. I really like the Joe All pick to go along with Rashawn Slater, a former second-team All-Pro Rashawn Slater, I believe, who was hurt last year. Your bookend tackles now, my goodness. I don't care which one's on the right and which one's on the left. You talk about that Ferrari, you don't need any more chip blocking. Like, you can go 5 out in most passing situations if you need to and let him just – you're not too worried about an edge rush. You're just worried about the interior guys holding up so he could step up. So I love what they're doing offensive line-wise. There's a lot to like. It's just not quite love yet. And that they're in the division with the team at the top of the division, which is the 6-time AFC West champion, Kansas City Chiefs, going for 7, if I'm not mistaken. I might even be underselling them. It might actually be 8 years in a row. It's been since 2016, so I think 8 years now. If I'm not, this will be year number 8. I have them 12-5, 5-1 in the division. Somebody will sneak one by them. There's not a lot to say. They still have probably the best defense in the division, even losing L'Jarius Sneed. It's going to be a different type of defense because of what he did was very specifically his specific set of skills made this defense elite. I think Trent McDuffie's a better overall corner possibly, but he doesn't have to do the same thing Sneed did as far as beating the you-know-what out of receivers at the line and being fast enough to run with them at the back end of it. You're not having Trent McDuffie fight Tyreek Hill off the line. That's just reckless. L'Jarius Sneed's one of a handful of guys who could do that. I think defensively, though, they're still one of the youngest defenses in the game. Hollywood Brown, he's injured right now. He'll be back mid-season at the latest. I think they said it's a 4-week injury or so. Xavier Worthy, whatever you want to say, him and Patrick Mahomes' arm is going to terrorize people. And it's back to 2 high safeties every play. Travis Kelce, until proven otherwise, is still effective. Isaiah Pacheco, I think, is going to crack 1,100, 1,200 yards rushing this year. I think the box is going to be so light, and that offensive line's still good. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. They've won 3 out of the last 5 Super Bowls, and they're the 2-time defending champions. They're going to go 12-5. They're going to win the division. The season doesn't start till January for them. This is all cruise control. I'm not going to spend any more time on Kansas City.
Okay.
It's redundant at this point.
Yeah. Moving on.
Yeah, so that I'll go ahead and wrap up the AFC West for me really quickly for those just tuning in. At the bottom, I have the Broncos at 5-12. At third, I have the Raiders at 6-11. At 2, I have the Chargers at 8-9. And at the top, we have the Kansas City Chiefs at 12-5. So, Kelcey, you, my good friend, are up. And like you said, there's some things are the same, but some things are quite different.
Yeah, some same, some different. And I know that doesn't work, but I'm going with it anyways. We're going to start at the bottom, and we're going to work our way up. And just like you, DJ, this is where they're the same. Broncos 5-12, and no, don't worry, we're not on replay here, guys. Yeah, it's just what it is. I don't think we need to talk about it more. I think this team is full of holes, and there's some great pieces, but there's still holes, and you got to fix them. You got to figure out which running back's actually going to carry the load. Is it going to be Javonte? Is it going to be Jalil? Who's going to be the guy toting the ball to help Bo Nix out? And you got to figure out a second receiver, because is it going to be Franklin? Is it going to be somebody else? You don't know yet. Tight end also still a question.
They could really use a Noah Fant right now.
Surprise, surprise. Anyways, yeah, so I don't think I need to harp on the Broncos anymore. But fun fact, they do have 2 quarterbacks that are from Auburn. So, surprise. Anyways, moving on. Number 3, the Raiders. 9-8. A little bit better than you had them. I do like them. I do think they're going to surprise some people, and I do think they're going to beat up on some people in the right ways at the right times. And I think Antonio Pierce learned from last year. He can't just beat up on everybody, so he's going to have a little finesse in the game. And I do trust Gardner. I might be one of the bigger Gardner stands out there, where when you have an outright number 1 receiver, you can't have a better quarterback than Gardner Minshew. And that sounds silly, but the dude just says, you know what? I can throw it over a mountain, so I'm going to throw it to Devontae. And
Uncle Rico's going to put it up.
That's just what he's going to do. Also, I've been stumbling through random TikToks of Gardner Minshew training montages to
oh boy, you're lost
Africa and things like that, and it's just hilarious. It's one of those just meme quality level things. Just we'll never forget those. So I guess maybe a little bit of bias there, but no, I do think the Raiders are going to surprise some folks. That defensive line is still quality. I do like Divine Diablo in the middle of their linebacking core. I think he fits what Antonio Pierce wants to do for that linebacking core, which is just be physical and fly to the ball. And I do think their secondary is getting a lot better. Now they might actually keep a secondary throughout an entire season. So yeah, I think this team is one to watch. Yes, there are still holes. There's no doubt about that, but they might sneak up and beat up some people.
I still love Trayvon Merrick at safety too. I think he's going to be dynamic.
Absolutely.
Forward. I think Antonio Pierce is a very good defensive-minded coach to have with some of the players they have. And I'm curious to see how Luke Getsy integrates this offense too, coming over from Chicago, where obviously that experiment did not work out. One thing he did, though, is he ran more 2 tight end sets than anyone in the league, and you got 2 of them in Vegas. So it's a match made in heaven there, I suppose.
Yeah, you got a boatload in Vegas. So we'll see if it comes up 21 when you need it.
Right? Excuse me. Sorry, Harrison Bryan. 3 tight ends in Vegas.
Yeah, they're going to be looking for a bunch of 21s this season. No snake eyes. That's all we ask. So we're going to move on to number 2 in the division. And, well, DJ, like you, I have the Chargers. Unlike you, I have faith in the Chargers. 11-6. And I maybe foreshadowed when I talked about potched out offenses, because I love them. I think they're very fun to run. I think they're very fun to use on Madden. And I'm going to say, screw it. Let's see if it works in real life. Because I think this is one where we're going to see Harbaugh just absolutely trying to beat people up with the run. And then as soon as they sneak a extra man into the box, Quentin Johnson, Josh Palmer, somebody's going to be over the top for a touchdown. And it's stupid to say it out loud because it seems so obvious. But when you're in the flow of the game and a team is running at you with 2 different monsters of a running back, whether they're fully healthy or not, doesn't matter. They can still fall forward for 3 yards. We all know J.K. Dobbins can figure out a way to carry somebody 3 yards when healthy. Obviously, there are questions about the recovery from ACLs, all that. Gus, though, I'm not really concerned about him carrying too much because that dude is built like a bus and will literally put people on his back like he is a public bus system. So, yeah, I'm okay with this. Let it happen. I do want you to use Justin Herbert more, but I'm not going to hate on you. And I finally will stand by yet again another season, and I will probably die on this hill that Asante Samuel Jr. will step up as one of the best corners in the league.
I love all this, and I really hope it happens, honestly. I really hope it does, and I want to see Justin Herbert finally not only take that next step himself, but have everyone around him join him. And I think this is the coach and the start to do it, and I hope you are right, and they kind of accelerate. If he was healthier right now, if he wasn't in a boot 10 minutes ago, I'd be a little more – I'm exaggerating. I'd be a little more comfortable with it, but I like the Chargers. I hope you are right. If it clicks like the way you said, 11-6 might even be potentially – actually, you know what? That might be right on cue because they still have to deal with that other team, but that's right on cue.
Yeah, and hey, there's a couple receivers they can go pick up in the free agency still that could help out in the season. But I do love what
Cincinnati, that if there's a contract thing, they might be able to go pull a trade for if things get rough up there. I mean, pick your choice. They both want money right now, and you take your poison.
Yeah. I agree. I love both of them, and they can easily make their way down to LA to help out with Justin Herbert. But I do want to say that if you haven't listened to Harbaugh's comments on seeing Justin Herbert back on the practice field again, it was something along the lines of, it was like angels were singing. And that to me just tells you how much he's in love with Justin Herbert's arm, which means I think that's why I'm setting us up for a pot shot offense, because I do feel like that's how this is going to be. Or he's going to just throw everything we think of out the window, and he's going to come out in a 5-wide set, first drive, and just try to throw it across the field. And then he's going to bunch it into an iPro. This is 100% Harbaugh's situation.
Guaranteed his first pass of the season is a bomb. Harbaugh's, whether they run it 4 times first starts the first play, it's going to be like Aaron Rodgers when he threw that one to Christian Watson in Green Bay a couple years ago. First pass of the season, 45-yard bomb. That's going to be Herbert next year. Whether it's completed or not, we will see, and who it's to. But he's going to test that arm out real quick.
Yeah, exactly. And he can flick it with the best of them. We watched him in person, and arm talent out the window. It's crazy. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and just skip right to some real arm talent as well. And who's healthy and who threw a ball behind his back. That's the Kansas City Chiefs. 15-2. Yeah, I couldn't go through a whole episode without mentioning that, just because I think it's hilarious that everybody's like, oh my gosh, he threw the ball behind him. How else were you going to get the ball to Travis Kelce, who was just being lazy and standing there? Like, no offense, Travis. I don't actually hate you. I understand what you were doing. It was just your release just barely got off the block. It just held on a little longer. Patrick, I know why you did it, because it is the most efficient way to get there. I strongly considered doing it in our flag football tournament, doing the same thing. I would not have been as cool, though. No offense to our flag football team, but I don't think I would have completed it. And no, I think this is one of those things. Look, Patrick has learned to win. That was his last 2 years. He learned to finally win in the most effective manner possible. So what do? You give him a cheetah again. You got one. You did great with him. You had a lot of fun, but you threw a lot of picks. You took him away. You learned to throw the ball underneath and dink and dime people to death. Now we're going to give you a cheetah again, and you're going to use that knowledge where you're dinking and dumping the ball across the field and destroying everybody. And now we're just going to throw a guy who can literally run past anybody else in the entire NFL. Line anybody else up next to him, he's running past him. That's how fast this dude is. And now you're just going to give him Patrick Mahomes. All right. Good luck, NFL. Andy Reid is about to have way too much fun with this. And the only way they lose these 2 games in my eyes is Andy Reid tries to be too cute. He goes Philadelphia Eagles Andy Reid for 2 games and just tries to have too much fun. Or they're 15-0, clinch the division, clinch the number 1 seed in the AFC, and they're just goofing around. And they're putting the backups in after 1 series. Like, that's how this goes. This team is so good. It's scary. However, I do have one of the losses coming against the Raiders yet again, because that just seems to be how things go lately. Is they're great, and then the Raiders beat them one time just out of nowhere. It's usually at Arrowhead, which is the wild part.
Even after they made fun of Patrick Mahomes and called him Kermit the Frog?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So you're saying the first game, Kansas City is going to blow them out 42-3, then the second game, the Raiders will somehow win it magically.
Yeah, because Antonio Pierce is the ultimate, like, hey, guys, you remember what they did to us? We called him Kermit. We're not going to talk about that, guys. Do you remember what they just did to us? Like, he's going to make it all about what they did to them, and they're going to come out like crazy. But it's going to take 1 game of getting beat down for it to happen. So, yeah, that's where I have the AFC West. So just to recap, from the bottom to the top, we are going with the Broncos at 5-12, bringing up the bottom of this division. Just need to figure out a lot of things. Raiders, number 3, 9-8. Again, a couple holes, but they'll beat up on some people. The Chargers, I have a whole lot of faith in, and probably going to lose my pants on that one. 11-6 for the LA Chargers. And the Kansas City Chiefs, 15-2, because they're just that freaking good, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah, that's a very fair way to round out Kansas City. And for our anonymous fan vote as well, so how things are different, and yet they are the same. At the bottom, the Broncos at 4-13, Raiders at 7-10-3, the Chargers at 9-8, and then the Kansas City Chiefs at 11-6, taking the division. So another division where we don't have a lot of parity as far as where they finish. We just have a question of how they're going to get there. But we will have to see too. Like, we will have that playoff episode coming up soon. Maybe those Chargers 11 wins gets them in the playoffs. So we'll have to wait and see for that. But that's what we're going to do it here for the West. That all we has left is Kelsey's favorite and least favorite division in the NFL. We have the Easts coming up next, and
It's sure not the NFC East.